right, we're back with another Friends of Medicine podcast, Behind the Scrubs. And I have some amazing physicians here with me and a medical student who will be discussing balancing life and medical training. Friends of Medicine is a foundation, and we bring experts from different industries together to basically discuss and give a glimpse into the triumphs and challenges of our profession and, come together with solutions that can help us along our journeys. So thank you for joining us today, guys, and let's dive right in. Dr. Azimi, tell us a little about yourself.
How you doing? I'm Dr. Azimi. I'm a chief surgical resident, and I'll be going into trauma. I'm originally from Virginia. Been down here 5 years.
Go trauma.
Go trauma.
Best specialty on the planet.
It is.
In case anyone's wondering.
We're not biased. Jasmine.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Beyk. I'm a third-year medical student, and I'm originally from Orlando, Florida.
It is a biased conversation, I'm not going to lie, because we have a medical student that's passionate about surgery. We have a trauma surgeon, and soon to be trauma surgeon. So.
She's right in the middle, and we're just going to influence her.
We might need to diversify this episode.
I mean, let's be honest. When people say I saved lives, I was having this conversation with a family member the other day. I said, it's incredible because I'm always a fly on the wall, as are you, and Optine is too, But when that moment actually counts and it's like that bleeding blood vessel,
audible,
and you're like,
audible.
You're going to die. And then you can physically go in there, fix it with your hands or the instruments and the devices that we have nowadays. Honestly, it's incredible. And you can actually correct it. I mean, what's more rewarding and just incredible than that? It's a unique experience.
Someone asked me, what's the scariest thing you've ever experienced in your job? And I said, knowing that a child had 5 heartbeats left before death. It was up to me to literally save them.
Yeah, put your finger on a bleeding vessel, put that instrument where it needs to be.
Or your fist.
We've talked about this before.
Or just shove your fist in there and just literally get down.
Everyone's like, what are you doing? You're like, no, I'm stopping.
This is what you have to do.
It's a very unique experience, and it's powerful. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
So we're not biased, for surgery or anything, but we find a lot of reward in what we do, and we want to share our passion for saving lives and helping students get to where they want to get to in their careers. So this episode is going to touch a little bit on balancing personal life with, what we do at work, saving lives, regardless of what specialty you're going into, what specialty you're involved in. It's a very delicate balance, and if you ignore certain aspects of your personal life, it affects your job, and if you ignore certain parts of your job, it affects your personal life. And physicians have a very high divorce rate, a high suicide rate, major depression. So it's important to have these discussions and, give some kind of support to our younger generations coming up to, minimize that stress in their training. So Optine, tell us a little bit about your success, because you're one of our superstar residents. Actually, you are one of the best residents I've ever worked with across the country. And, you've definitely worked hard for it. It hasn't just come to you. Share a little bit about your journey, where you started, how you were able to achieve this level of success as a chief resident now.
Thank you. That means a lot, really.
I'll second everything you said.
A lot of that comes from failure, because when you fail, it's like, that's probably the worst feeling you've ever had. And you don't ever want to feel that again. So that kind of motivates you to change the things you were doing and just do everything in a whole different way. How I did it, I mean, like I said, everything comes from failure. The way I am now is because I applied to medical schools in America and I didn't get in. I spent so much money and I went on only one interview out of, can't even remember how many places I applied to, and I didn't get in. And that was the worst feeling. I almost dropped everything, I almost gave up. And I was like, I'm not good at anything else. Let me just go into the military. That's what I thought. Oh, if you're not good at anything, just go into the military. Not a knock on military or anything like that. But I had a family member who went to the school in the Caribbean, and they, recommended, hey, listen, go out there and give it another chance. And I went there on a kind of last chance mentality. And all I did was study, and all I did was devote myself to having new, better habits and just work. And I carried that on through residency, and even applying for residency. I applied to 250 spots, only got 5 interviews, and I didn't match. And I crushed the step, and I thought I did everything right, and I got all the letters. And that was the most depressing day of my life. And I remember I walked into the woods, not to sound like weird, but I was walked into the woods just to kind of lose myself and try to find myself and just kind of clear my head and get away from everyone. Because when you're down and you're down bad, the last thing you want to do is talk to other people, because it's going to, whatever they're going to do, they're going to try to make you feel better, but there's no way to feel better than feeling better yourself. So I went and I just kind of cleared my head. I was lost for about 3 hours. I found a drone. It was weird. A random drone with the 4 row. It was a really weird. I found like 3 like fake skulls. But you know, I cleared my head, and then I got back. Okay, I'm down, but I'm not out. I get back up and I try again. And the next is soap. And I was blessed to, match where I'm matched now. And I just took the opportunity with both hands, and I made it into what I am now. But everything I do, I have a goal in mind, and my goal is to try to succeed and become a surgeon. So I went into a residency, and I opened my ears, and I took that. There was some BS. You take the BS. There's days where you're there for 16, 18, 20 hours. I take it because I have that end goal at the end of my mind. At the end of the day, big picture. And I lost some people. I came down with someone. They left. I stayed. But you have to prioritize. Like, everything in life is priorities. There cannot be, in my mind, there cannot be 2 number ones. There's only one number one. Now, I'm not saying you have to have medicine be number one, but whatever that number one is, you devote yourself to it. So medicine was my number one. And, the relationships, unfortunately, that was my number 2. And it hurt me, but I had that goal in my head, and I was never going to taste failure again. And that's what pushed me through.
I tell people a lot, failure is a necessary ingredient to success. And unless you actually hit rock bottom, you don't really have that full maximum potential to be your best, because you haven't tasted what that feels like.
Absolutely.
And, I tell people all the time, if you fail at something, that just means you have more potential to be successful. So, take the failures as wins, learn from them, and apply it to your next go around. Doesn't mean it's the end.
I mean, Obtine is literally a better surgeon than I am.
No, don't say that. You're gonna make me tear up.
No, I'm.
It means a lot.
I could just close my eyes and not care at all.
Take a nap.
Thank you.
And there's not many people that are your chief resident that are at that level.
That means a lot. I appreciate that.
It's incredible, and you're gonna be the best surgeon.
I hope so. That's the mentality.
You are. No, you are the best surgeon.
Thanks.
And you can tell that something drove him to this point. And I'm really appreciative that you shared that story with us and for our listeners, because a lot of people think that we go through and they view us as superstars and, oh my gosh, look at what he's achieved. But they don't understand what was required, what we went through, what we had to push through to get where we are today. There's a lot of failure. There's a lot of tears. There's a lot of family members, relationships that are lost. I myself experienced a divorce, during my training, and it literally took me down and out, and is probably the reason for the birth of Friends of Medicine and what we're doing today. Yeah. So I count blessings in failures, and I appreciate you for sharing that story with us.
Of course.
Yeah.
Jasmine, you're a medical student, rising, about to apply to residency. What do you want to do?
So I want to go into plastic surgery, hopefully.
Awesome.
I'm also going to apply to general surgery as well. And I really appreciated your story, because I actually did go through a similar background myself with that. I am going to a Caribbean medical school as well. And I did apply to one that is connected to a U.S. medical school to do my clinicals, in hope that it will help me with residency applications in the future. But I feel that, with hard work and dedication, putting your studies first above everything else is the key to getting to where you want to go.
It's interesting too, in this career path, there's no guarantee, because I'm actually
the only guarantee is uncertainty.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation, because
the only guarantee is uncertainty.
I know somebody, and somebody knows somebody, and somebody knows somebody, and you think that in the real world, like, it's all about who you know, not what you know. But honestly, with what we do, that isn't the case. And I'm dealing with that right now with a close family member, friend, colleague, and you'd be surprised. And it is about your dedication, your scores. Because at the end of the day too, I'm the clerkship director for our medical students, and I direct the University of medical education. And I always tell our students, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. It doesn't matter really who you know, but at the end of the day, what your grade is dependent upon is how you do on exams, how you do on certain criteria that we measure. And as if you come in at 5 a.m. and you're the best student we've ever seen, that I can only do so much for you. And I get emails, I get phone calls, I get text messages. Hey, Dr. Renda, can you do something? At the end of the day, like we said, a lot of it boils down to a number. And then you become a number in this entire pool of numbers. So yeah, your significant other, your father, your mother, your daughter, your brother, your sister could be the director of anything, but at the end of the day, it's going to fall back on you.
Yeah. And when those numbers align and each person is a number, all those extra things then come into play. But to have a seat at the table, you need to have the score, you need to get there. And that's really on you. I tell students, like surgical residents, the prelims in particular. So prelims are residents who don't have a full-time spot in surgical training. They have 1 year, prove yourself, do well on the exam, and maybe, hopefully, you can get a spot in our program or another program. So a preliminary spot is a privilege because not everyone gets that opportunity, but at the same time, it creates this stigma against you because, oh, you didn't get a full spot. So I tell people, just ignore all the negative and focus on what you have to do. I was once a prelim myself. And everyone was telling me all the odds are against me for getting into surgery. I completely ignored all of that and I focused on what do I have to do? What are my shortcomings that I need to overcome? And the ABSITE, which is the American Board of Surgery in Training exam, an exam that all the surgical residents in the country take once a year, was the most important metric to get a spot. So I said, okay, my program director told me, listen, if you do well in the ABSITE, I will help you. I hadn't even heard of ABSITE at that point because I was on a path of neurosurgery and I was switching specialties. So I said, you know what? Let me look into this. I studied my butt off for 3 months straight just before the exam. I knew what I had to do and it was not the rest of my life. So on the toilet, questions. At the stoplight, questions. In the supermarket line, questions. In bed before I fall asleep, questions. As I wake up, questions. I did like 4,000, 5,000 questions that year, the most I've ever done. And I got the highest score amongst all the other prelims at that program trying to get that same spot. I think there were like, I don't know, 15 of us or something. You know, my life was on hold for those 3 months, but I knew what I had to do and I knew that I had to become a number. So right after, another program said, hey, you know, one of our interns just dropped out. They called my program director and said, hey, do you have anyone that's good? And they didn't think about anyone else. They sent me to the interview because I got the highest ABSITE score and the rest is history. I got the spot. So I tell people, you know, it's better to be prepared. I don't know who this quote is from. Maybe we could look it up. It's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So do what you have to do. It's not going to be forever and your family will be understanding. But at the same time, you can't ignore basic relationships and, you know, basic things that keep your life together, because then you're going to go burn out. You're going to get depressed. Some people get suicidal. And unfortunately, we have a very high suicide rate in our profession, more so in surgery. You know, some of what Friends of Medicine is doing is trying to provide support systems for mental health amongst all the specialties. I worked in some states where, you know, a couple of surgeons committed suicide in their office, and it was really traumatizing to me because I had just spoken to them, you know, so it's something that means a lot to me, the mental health aspect of our training and trying to find that balance where you're able to succeed academically, but at the same time, maintain the basic relationships and aspects of your non-medical life that will actually support you getting through the academics. Because if you don't have that balance, you're going to just implode.
Right. And several students that give up working out, eating right, their relationships, you know, to try to get a good score on their exams. But I always try to tell them, you know, to take the time. You need the mental health at the end of the day, going through these years of medical school and obviously residency and beyond. So, you know, prioritize your studying, but also prioritize, you know, working out, staying healthy, eating right.
You shouldn't jeopardize your health.
Right.
Basically. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm guilty of it. You know, there's sometimes I don't sleep for 36 hours straight, and it's not good. And I feel the effects of it after. But you have to take breaks. You have to just, you know, unpack yourself and pause.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's the great equalizer too, because there's also a dichotomy as well. It's the great equalizer because I'm taking the same test as you are, and as you are. So no one's getting a heads up. It's basically all on you. It's like a boxing match. You versus the test. There's no one else helping you. But on the flip side is that score may just define you. You may have just had a bad day. Exactly. Just like I may have had a bad day on a rotation, and then that rotation they judge me bad. So it's the whole big picture as well. And I know some programs they value that more than others, but being someone who also try to get all the best scores and try to get the highest scores, thinking that was the end all be all. I like seeing candidates when they start applying now. I start seeing candidates who you have to have. Listen, you're all smart to be in medicine. Just finish, just don't think about that anymore. You're all smart. It's now who you are on top of being someone intelligent. Are you just someone who just dedicates their entire life to studying? Right. If you are, I don't want to be around you because you're a one-sided person. But if you're someone who's also intelligent, also has goals and hobbies outside of medicine, and also is able to interact with others and be sociable and actually be someone I can approach and be friends with, that's who I want. And that's who we should strive to be as.
And even if you're not that person, you can set yourself up. Mm-hmm. Go to networking events, go to journal clubs, meet people, get outside of the hospital setting, and just live life a little bit. You don't have to overdo it, but it's important to have that balance, and that's the only way you can truly succeed.
I always talk about this. Glad you brought that up. It's when you apply from high school to college, what do? Well, you send away your ACT, SAT scores, your GPA, and somebody says, okay, we'll grant you an interview. Great. Then you get into college. Then you apply to medical school. They say, okay, we need to interview you. Guess what? Your interview is meaningless and it's scores and numbers. Then you apply to residency. Again, a lot of scores, but we like to weigh in who the person is. Then you apply to,
you have some kind of track record of grades.
Right? Exactly. So this is the interesting, again, the pendulum, like we were talking about before. So all of a sudden it's all about what you look like on paper. Right. And then what you just said, all of a sudden the pendulum starts to swing back the other direction, because when you become a fellow, I'm our associate program director for the fellowship. I want to know if I could have a coffee with you at the end of the day, because guess what? You made it this far. Can we hang out? Can we have a conversation? Exactly. Are you a good surgeon?
Right.
Are you socially awkward? All you care about is scores.
If I have a terrible traumatic arrest in the ICU, are you going to be able to take care of it? Because I got 20 other things going on.
Manage the family.
And you're the guy, That's what matters. Right. And then all of a sudden, then you need a job. And then it's all of that times 1,000. You know what I mean? And it's not about who you know at that point. It's about you as a human being. Because guess what? You checked every box. But do I want to have a podcast at the end of the day with Andre on my post-call day? Of course I do. Because that's my boy. You know what I mean? So that is the next level of life and your career, because we talk to each other all the time about how we have the best job, but it's because of our boss. It's because of our partners. It's because we have each other's backs. When you go into a surgical specialty like trauma, there's a lot of different, dynamics in this field. And it could be a headache if you go into work and you're like, man, this guy did this or that. I mean, we all take care of each other's patients. We all have each other's backs. And I always say to everybody that the most important decision you make is not your residency. It's not your fellowship. It's your career, your job that you're going to get at the end of the day. And that is what everything is depending upon. And guess what? when I talk to you during that interview, can I have a coffee with you after 24 hours of a shift? You got the job. If not, probably not.
I think we did once too.
Yeah, we always have a
Yeah,
coffee.
probably did.
Well, like I said, I always hand you the suture. When it's a complex situation, I go, here you go.
Blame the resident.
What are you gonna do with this? Oh, it would leak. Oh, it was,
Oh, no.
that was Opti's
It
fault.
doesn't leak.
I'm going to save your hair, Optine. On that note, guys, we're going to take a little break to hear from our sponsors of this Friends of Medicine podcast, Behind the Scrubs. We'll see you soon.
This episode of Behind the Scrubs is brought to you by Friends of Medicine. Friends of Medicine hosts its annual summer event on June 17th, 2023 at the Intercontinental Miami Hotel. Come meet the medical and business stars in our network from across the U.S. and experience networking like never before in a stunning enchanted forest. Click the link in the description to get your tickets today. Sponsorship opportunities available at www.friendsofmed.com.